I never thought it would happen to me, not after 10 years of marriage. But one text message at 2:17 a.m. changed everything. What I discovered next shattered my world completely. My name is Emily, and I've always believed that love, trust, and honesty are the pillars of a strong relationship. 10 years together, and I thought I knew every part of Michael, his moods, his habits, the way he laughed, the way he smiled. Every morning, he'd make me coffee, and we'd share our little jokes. We were a team, a perfect match in my eyes. Every evening, we would talk about our day, share our plans for the weekend, and occasionally just sit together in silence, comfortable in our routine. It felt safe, warm, and permanent, like nothing could ever break us. But life, as I learned the hard way, has a way of hiding the truth behind the most ordinary moments. It started with small things, subtle, almost unnoticeable. A late night at work, an unusual smile at a text message, a phone placed screen down just slightly too often. At first, I ignored these things. I told myself I was overthinking. After all, Michael had always been honest with me, or so I thought. I replayed our past memories in my head, searching for signs that I might have missed. Maybe I had imagined things. Maybe it was just stress. But my gut never lies. One rainy evening, as the sound of the droplets hitting the windows filled the room, I sat in the living room scrolling through my phone, trying to distract myself. Michael's phone buzzed on the counter. I didn't want to look. I promised myself I wouldn't. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. I picked it up, just a glance, and froze. A message preview flashed across the screen. Can't wait to see you tonight, heavy black heart. My heart skipped a beat. I stared at it, my mind racing. I read it again. Surely, I was mistaken. This had to be some misunderstanding. Maybe it wasn't for him, maybe it was a wrong number. But deep down, I knew the truth. I felt it in the pit of my stomach, the one place that never lies. My chest tightened, a wave of nausea washed over me, and I felt a sudden dizzying fear that rooted me to the spot. The world seemed to spin just slightly, and the only thing I could hear was the pounding of my own heartbeat. I tried to remember the past weeks, the subtle signs I had ignored. The extra phone calls that lasted longer than usual, the unexplained laughter when I entered the room, the slight hesitation when I asked simple questions. I had brushed them off as coincidences, but now, they lined up in perfect, horrifying clarity. Every small lie, every little secret suddenly made sense. The picture of our perfect life shattered into fragments that I couldn't ignore. The next morning, I tried to act normal. I wanted to gather my thoughts, plan what I would say. But my mind was clouded with fear and disbelief. Every glance at him was a test. Could he hide this betrayal from me any longer? Was he aware that I knew? Or was I imagining things again? I walked through the house with a forced smile, the sound of my own breathing loud in my ears. I tried to make conversation, to act as if nothing had changed, but my mind kept returning to the message. Over the next few days, the tension in our house grew unbearable. I watched his every movement, the way he checked his phone, the way he avoided my eyes. It was exhausting, emotionally draining. Each moment was a battle between fear and the desperate need for confirmation. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to pretend it wasn't happening, but a stronger part of me demanded the truth. My nerves were frayed, and every small sound made me jump: the buzz of a phone, the creak of a door, the quiet sighs in the living room. One evening, while Michael was in the kitchen, I saw his phone light up on the table. He had left it unlocked. My hands trembled as I reached for it. Another message popped up: "You're amazing. Can't wait until tonight." That was it. I couldn't pretend any longer. I had the proof I needed. My heart ached, my vision blurred with tears, and I felt an anger I didn't know I could hold. But I also felt a strange sense of clarity. The moment I had dreaded had arrived. I had to confront him. I could feel the blood rushing to my head, my hands shaking uncontrollably. Every instinct screamed at me to turn away, but my determination overpowered my fear. Confrontation is never easy. The moment I asked him, "Is this true?" the world seemed to pause. He looked at me, hesitation and fear in his eyes. His lips parted, and then, he admitted everything. The denial, the lies, the late-night meetings, the betrayal that had been unfolding for months. My mind couldn't process it all at once. I felt dizzy, my body weak, but my heart felt the weight of every single lie. My vision blurred, my ears rang with the intensity of emotion. I wanted to scream, to cry, to make it all stop. I remember sitting in the living room later that night, alone, the weight of betrayal pressing down on me. The house felt empty, even though he was just in the next room. Every laugh we had shared, every promise we had made, every dream we had built together, seemed to collapse in an instant. I felt like I was living someone else's nightmare. My emotions swung wildly: grief, anger, disbelief, sadness. And yet, underneath it all, there was a small spark of determination, telling me I could survive this. Days passed. I couldn't sleep. I replayed the events in my head, every word, every gesture. How had I missed all the signs? How could someone I trusted so completely, someone I loved with all my heart, do this to me? I questioned everything: my judgment, my relationship, even my self-worth. The emotional pain was overwhelming, but deep down, I knew I had to survive this. I had to find a way to rebuild, to regain control over my life. I started writing down my thoughts, talking to friends I trusted, and slowly began to piece together my emotions into something I could manage. After that night, everything changed. The house no longer felt like a home. Every corner held memories of laughter, conversations, and promises, yet each memory now seemed like a lie I had been living in. My mind kept replaying the messages over and over, analyzing every word, every emoji, every subtle hint I had ignored before. It was as though I had been living in a parallel world where nothing was real, and the truth was finally crashing down around me. Michael tried to act normal in the mornings, making coffee, pretending nothing had happened. But I could see it in his eyes: guilt, fear, hesitation. It made my stomach churn every time I looked at him. I wanted answers, but I also feared them. I felt trapped in a storm of emotions, unable to find my footing. Every question I asked him was met with partial answers, vague explanations, and silence. I began to notice patterns I had ignored for years. The late-night messages, the unexplained disappearances, the small gifts he claimed were for work, the moments when he would check his phone just a little too quickly when I entered the room. Each small incident was now magnified, a piece of the puzzle that I had been too blind or too trusting to see. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I had ignored the signs for so long, and now I had to face the consequences. One night, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I wanted to know the full truth, no matter how much it hurt. I took his phone, opened his messages, and began scrolling through the conversation threads. My hands trembled. Every line, every word, every emoji confirmed what I had feared. Months of secret meetings, hidden messages, whispered promises that were never for me. My heart felt like it had been ripped out of my chest, yet I couldn't look away. It was as though I had been staring into the abyss, and now I had to accept what was there. I remember sitting down on the edge of our bed, the phone in my hands, tears streaming down my face. I felt a mix of rage, sadness, and disbelief. How could someone I trusted completely betray me like this? How could the man I loved with all my heart risk everything we had built for a fleeting moment of desire, a hidden affair, a secret life I had no idea existed? The next morning, I confronted him. I tried to stay calm, but my voice shook, my hands trembled, and my heart pounded in my chest. "Is it true?" I asked, my eyes locked on his. The room seemed to grow smaller, the silence louder. He hesitated. His gaze dropped. And then, finally, he admitted everything. The late nights, the lies, the secret meetings, every betrayal unfolded like a knife twisting in my chest. I wanted to scream, to cry, to run away, but I had to stay, had to face it, had to process it. In the following days, I lived in a haze of disbelief and grief. I walked through the house, noticing every detail, every memory now tainted, the coffee mugs we had bought together, the photographs of happy moments, the little notes we had left each other. Everything seemed to mock me, reminding me of what had been lost. I cried endlessly, replaying conversations, analyzing his every word, wondering if I had been blind, foolish, or both. Friends and family tried to comfort me, but their words felt hollow. No one could truly understand the depth of betrayal, the way it can consume your thoughts, invade your dreams, and make you question your entire life. At times, I felt completely alone, even when surrounded by people who loved me. Every day was a battle to maintain composure, to function, to face the world, and to face myself in the mirror. I remember one evening vividly. Michael had left for work, and I sat in the living room, staring at the phone that had ruined everything. I noticed a pattern in the messages every Friday night, every late Tuesday evening, every random weekend, a rhythm to his betrayal. My mind raced, cataloging every deceit, every omission, every lie I had unknowingly been living under. The realization that he had been leading a double life, carefully, methodically, was crushing. Yet amidst the despair, a spark of clarity emerged. I realized I couldn't let this destroy me completely. I had to reclaim myself, regain my dignity, and find a way to navigate this pain without losing myself entirely. I began writing down my thoughts, pouring every emotion onto paper, trying to make sense of the chaos. Each word I wrote was like a small step toward healing, a declaration that I would not be broken entirely by someone else's betrayal. Over the weeks, I started observing him differently. I noticed not just his faults, but his human complexity, his fears, his weaknesses, his regrets. It didn't excuse his actions, but it helped me understand that people are capable of mistakes, sometimes devastating ones. And while understanding did not equal forgiveness, it offered a framework to rebuild my own life without being consumed entirely by anger. I also began reflecting on myself, my choices, my blind spots. Had I ignored certain behaviors? Had I given too much trust too easily? These questions were painful, but necessary. They allowed me to confront not just Michael's betrayal, but my own role in the relationship, not as a victim, but as someone striving to understand, learn, and grow. Every night, I replayed the moments before the discovery. The laughter, the comfort, the moments of genuine love, all now tinged with pain and betrayal. But I also realized that those memories, though painful, were real. They reminded me of my capacity to love deeply, to invest in another person, and to hope for happiness. And that capacity, I knew, could not be erased by someone else's deception. As the confrontation days continued, I noticed subtle changes in myself. I became more aware, more cautious, more deliberate in my interactions. I no longer ignored small signs. I listened to my instincts, trusted my observations, and learned to value my own judgment. The process was exhausting, emotionally draining, and at times terrifying. Yet it also made me stronger. The days that followed Michael's confession were some of the darkest of my life. Every glance at him felt like a reminder of the betrayal, and every memory of our life together seemed tainted. I would wake in the middle of the night, heart pounding, replaying the conversation over and over in my mind. The words, the hesitations, the admissions, each one cut deeper than the last. I felt as though I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into a chasm of disbelief, anger, and heartbreak. I tried to function during the day, going through the motions of life, but my mind was elsewhere. At work, I found myself distracted, staring out the window, lost in thought. Even the simplest interactions with friends and colleagues felt hollow. I realized then that betrayal is not just an event, it is a living, breathing presence that invades every corner of your life. It colors your perception, your thoughts, your emotions, and even the air you breathe. One evening, I confronted him again. This time, I needed more than just a confession, I needed answers. I asked questions I had been holding back, questions that had been simmering in my mind like a slow-burning fire. Why? How could you do this? Did you ever love me? The silence that followed was deafening. His answers were hesitant, fragmented, full of apologies and excuses, but they could not erase the damage done. Every word, every hesitation, every tear that I saw in his eyes was like a knife twisting in my chest. I remember feeling a strange mix of emotions: anger, sadness, disbelief, and an almost numbing sense of helplessness. The betrayal was not just in the act itself, but in the years of trust I had given him, the love I had invested, the moments I had believed were safe and genuine. It was as if the foundation of my entire life had shifted beneath me, leaving me unsteady, vulnerable, and questioning everything I had once held dear. For hours after that confrontation, I sat in silence, my hands trembling, tears streaming down my face. I looked around the house, at the photographs of us smiling together, at the souvenirs of our trips, at the little notes we had left each other over the years. Each object, each memory, felt like a mockery of what I had thought was real. I felt betrayed not just by him, but by my own ability to trust so fully, to give so completely. Sleep eluded me for nights. My dreams were filled with replayed scenarios: the text message, his hesitant words, the moment of confession. I woke sweating, heart racing, feeling as though the betrayal was a living thing, a shadow that followed me wherever I went. My mind cycled through questions without answers. Was it my fault? Could I have noticed sooner? Should I have said something earlier? Each thought was like a splinter in my mind, relentless and painful. Amidst this chaos, a moment of clarity came unexpectedly. I realized that I could not continue to allow this betrayal to define me, to control my life, to dictate my emotions. I needed to reclaim my sense of self, to find strength in the midst of devastation. I began small, journaling my thoughts, speaking to trusted friends, taking long walks alone to process the storm inside me. Each step, though painful, was a step toward reclaiming my power, toward establishing boundaries between the hurt inflicted and the life I still had to live. Michael attempted to explain further, his tone pleading, apologetic, desperate. He spoke of mistakes, of confusion, of weakness, of fleeting moments of desire that had led him down a path he now regretted. Yet, no explanation could erase the emotional damage. No words could repair the trust shattered so completely. I listened, nodding at times, silent at others, feeling both the weight of truth and the impossibility of repair. The breaking point came when I realized that I needed to separate my emotions from my actions. I could not allow anger and grief to dictate my decisions entirely. I needed to survive, to move forward, and to reclaim my life. The confrontation, though excruciating, had provided clarity. The betrayal had been exposed, the lies revealed, and now the only question left was how I would navigate the aftermath. In the quiet moments alone, I reflected on the love I had given, the trust I had placed, and the life I had envisioned. I acknowledged the pain, allowed myself to grieve fully, and embraced the rawness of my emotions. The tears, the trembling, the heartbreak, all of it was necessary. It was the process of dismantling the illusion of security I had lived under, of confronting reality, and of preparing to build something new from the ruins. Each day that passed brought a mixture of sorrow and revelation. I began noticing patterns in our interactions, understanding the subtle signs I had ignored, the conversations I had brushed off, the small acts that hinted at a reality I had not wanted to see. It was as though the betrayal had unfolded like a puzzle, and now I could see the full picture in stark clarity. The emotional weight was immense, but understanding provided a strange kind of relief. Slowly, I began reclaiming small parts of my life. I spoke openly with friends I trusted, sharing details I had previously kept to myself out of shame or disbelief. I found solace in their empathy, in their ability to listen without judgment, and in the affirmation that my feelings were valid. Each conversation, each acknowledgement of my pain, strengthened my resolve to heal, to recover, and to find a path forward despite the devastation. One night, as I sat by the window, watching the rain fall softly against the glass, I realized that though my trust had been shattered, my spirit remained intact. I could feel the weight of betrayal, yes, but I also felt the glimmer of resilience, the quiet voice within me that insisted I would survive, that I would reclaim my life, that I would rise above the pain. That realization, though subtle, was powerful. It became a beacon, guiding me through the darkness of heartbreak, reminding me that I was not defined by someone else's choices, but by my own strength, my own courage, and my capacity to endure. Days turned into weeks, and the storm of emotions slowly began to shift. The raw pain of betrayal was still present, gnawing at my heart, but it no longer consumed every thought. I began to notice moments of clarity amidst the sadness, small reminders that I was still whole, that my identity was not defined by someone else's mistakes, and that I had the power to shape my own path forward. I started with small steps. I journaled every feeling, every thought, allowing myself to pour the hurt onto paper rather than letting it fester inside. Writing became a form of therapy, a safe space where I could process anger, sorrow, and disappointment without judgment. The simple act of organizing my thoughts helped me regain a sense of control that betrayal had stolen. I also began to confide in friends I trusted deeply. I shared details I had previously kept hidden, knowing that their support would not only comfort me but also reinforce the understanding that my feelings were valid. Every conversation became a building block, helping me reconstruct a sense of normalcy, reminding me that I was not alone in this experience. Their empathy and encouragement were like a lifeline, pulling me from the depths of despair one word at a time. Slowly, I started reclaiming parts of myself I had lost along the way. I revisited hobbies and passions I had abandoned, sought new experiences, and challenged myself to step outside the shadow of betrayal. Each small victory, whether it was completing a project I had postponed, reconnecting with an old friend, or simply enjoying a quiet moment alone, was a reminder that I was capable of growth and healing, even in the aftermath of heartbreak. Reflection became a crucial part of my journey. I spent time analyzing the relationship, not to dwell on blame, but to understand the dynamics that had allowed betrayal to take root. I acknowledged my own vulnerabilities, the moments when I had ignored signs or placed too much trust without question. This introspection was painful but necessary. It allowed me to reclaim agency over my emotions, to recognize patterns, and to commit to being more mindful and intentional in my future interactions. I also realized the importance of forgiveness, not for him, not for his betrayal, but for myself. Forgiving does not mean forgetting or excusing wrongdoing, it means releasing the grip of anger and resentment that threatens to poison my own spirit. By forgiving, I could create space for healing, for self-love, and for emotional freedom. It was one of the hardest lessons, yet the most liberating. During this period, I began to notice subtle shifts in my perspective. Where once I had felt entirely victimized, I started to see myself as a survivor. I had endured pain that could have shattered me, yet here I was, slowly rebuilding my sense of self. I felt empowered, no longer defined by the choices of another person, but by my own resilience, courage, and determination to move forward. As the weeks progressed, I found moments of peace amidst the lingering sadness. I would take walks at dusk, feeling the cool breeze on my skin, listening to the soft rustle of leaves, and realizing that life continued beyond the pain. Each step I took physically mirrored the emotional steps I was making moving forward, even when every part of me wanted to linger in the past. I also began to understand that healing is not linear. There were days when grief returned in full force, days when anger would flare uncontrollably, and nights when tears flowed freely. Yet, even in these moments, I recognized progress. The intensity of my emotions no longer dictated my actions. I could feel the sorrow, but I could also choose to rise above it, to focus on growth and self-discovery rather than being consumed by hurt. Over time, I learned the value of setting boundaries. I recognized what I would accept and what I would no longer tolerate, not just in relationships, but in life. These boundaries became a form of self-respect, a declaration that my well-being mattered, that my heart deserved protection, and that I had the power to ensure that past betrayals would not define my future. I also began to explore new forms of self-expression. I joined writing groups, participated in creative workshops, and started speaking about my experiences with others in safe spaces. Sharing my story, even in fragments, became cathartic. It allowed me to connect with others who had endured similar pain, and in those connections, I found understanding, empathy, and a sense of solidarity that was profoundly healing. One of the most important lessons I learned during this time was the necessity of self-compassion. I had spent so long blaming myself, questioning my judgment, and doubting my worth. But through reflection, journaling, and open conversations with friends, I realized that self-compassion was the key to true healing. I began treating myself with kindness, acknowledging that my pain was real, my feelings were valid, and my journey toward recovery deserved patience and respect. In quiet moments, I reflected on the love I had once shared with Michael. Those memories, though painful, were also a testament to my capacity to give and to care deeply. I realized that the experience, as devastating as it had been, did not erase my ability to love again. It taught me the importance of discernment, of self-awareness, and of recognizing when trust must be earned rather than given unconditionally. By the end of this period, I felt a shift within myself. The heartbreak remained, but it no longer defined me. I had begun to reclaim joy, curiosity, and hope. I understood that while betrayal could wound deeply, it could also be a catalyst for self-discovery, resilience, and personal growth. I was learning to live fully again, to embrace life on my own terms, and to recognize that my happiness depended not on the actions of others, but on the choices I made for myself. And so, I stepped forward into the world with cautious optimism, carrying with me the lessons of betrayal, the strength born from heartbreak, and the unshakable knowledge that I could endure, heal, and thrive, even in the aftermath of profound loss. As the weeks turned into months, I began to notice a change within myself. The constant ache of betrayal, while still present, no longer ruled my thoughts entirely. I found moments of quiet peace, brief stretches of laughter, and the ability to feel joy without guilt. It was as if my heart, once fractured, was slowly stitching itself together, thread by thread, learning the contours of resilience and the contours of self-love. I realized that life, even after such a profound betrayal, continues to offer opportunities for growth, understanding, and connection. The pain, though unavoidable, had become a teacher. It forced me to confront uncomfortable truths, examine my choices, and understand the limits of human trust. But more importantly, it revealed the unbreakable strength that exists within each of us when we face adversity head-on. One day, while walking through the park, I observed a mother playing with her child. The simplicity of the scene, laughter, innocence, and unconditional love struck me deeply. I understood then that while betrayal could shatter our illusions, it could not erase the capacity to appreciate life's beauty. I began to notice small blessings again, the warmth of the sun on my face, the aroma of morning coffee, the sound of a friend's laughter. Life had not ended, it had merely changed its shape, and I was learning to navigate this new terrain with awareness and courage. I also recognized the importance of setting boundaries, not just in romantic relationships but in every aspect of life. Trust, I realized, is precious and must be earned. I became more attentive to the people around me, more discerning in my interactions, and more deliberate in how I allowed others into my life. This newfound clarity was empowering. I felt the difference between blind faith and conscious trust, between dependence and autonomy. And in that space, I discovered freedom. Reflection continued to play a crucial role in my healing. I revisited old memories, the laughter, the quiet conversations, the moments of intimacy not with pain, but with understanding. I acknowledged that love is complex, imperfect, and sometimes flawed, yet it is also beautiful in its ability to teach, to connect, and to inspire growth. I embraced the paradox that while betrayal hurts deeply, it also offers lessons that are invaluable and enduring. I found ways to reclaim my joy. I traveled to new places, explored hobbies I had neglected, and immersed myself in creative pursuits. Each experience, no matter how small, became a reminder that life is multidimensional, and that heartbreak, while significant, is not the entirety of our existence. I laughed again, sometimes freely, sometimes hesitantly, but always with awareness that joy could coexist with sorrow. I began to share my story with others, cautiously at first, through writing and conversation. I discovered that many people had faced similar betrayals, and in sharing, a sense of solidarity emerged. The pain, once isolating, became connective. Through empathy and shared experience, I found community and understanding. And in helping others process their pain, I found healing for myself. I also discovered the value of forgiveness not as a means to absolve wrongdoing, but as a tool to release myself from the chains of resentment. Forgiving Michael, in my heart, did not mean condoning his actions or forgetting the betrayal. It meant freeing myself from the grip of anger, allowing me to live fully without being imprisoned by the past. This form of forgiveness was powerful, liberating, and deeply transformative. Over time, I felt a renewed sense of self-worth. I recognized that my value was not diminished by someone else's choices, nor was my capacity to love compromised by betrayal. I had endured, I had reflected, and I had emerged stronger. The journey was neither quick nor easy, but it was authentic. I embraced the truth that while heartbreak is universal, so too is the human ability to heal, to learn, and to grow. As I look back now, I see the entire experience not as a period of defeat, but as a chapter of growth. I understand that life will always bring challenges, moments of betrayal, and unforeseen heartache. Yet, the resilience I discovered within myself equips me to face whatever comes next. I am no longer defined by the actions of another, but by my own courage, wisdom, and ability to move forward with clarity and strength. My story, though deeply personal, carries a universal lesson. Love, trust, and heartbreak are intertwined threads in the tapestry of human experience. Betrayal may shake us, but it can also illuminate our inner strength, teach us discernment, and guide us toward deeper self-awareness. We are not powerless in the face of pain. We have the capacity to endure, to reflect, and to grow. And so, I continue forward, carrying the lessons, the scars, and the wisdom that life has given me. I have learned to cherish the genuine moments of love that remain, to protect my heart without closing it off, and to embrace life with an open, resilient spirit. The betrayal will always be a part of my story, but it does not define the whole of it. I am still here. I am still strong. And I am still capable of love, joy, and hope. To anyone listening to this story, know this: pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Trust your instincts, honor your feelings, set your boundaries, and above all, believe in your own strength. Healing takes time, patience, and self-compassion, but it is possible. The heart may break, but it can also mend stronger, wiser, and ready to embrace life once more. This is not the end of my story. It is a new beginning, one filled with awareness, growth, and the unwavering belief that even after betrayal, life continues to hold beauty, love, and hope. And though the scars remain, they serve as a testament to my resilience, my courage, and the undeniable power of the human spirit to endure and thrive. Just when I thought I had found some peace, a memory would strike me unexpectedly, a phrase he once said, a laugh, a gesture, and it would pull me back into that storm of doubt and heartbreak. For a moment, I would question myself again: had I truly healed, or was the pain simply lying dormant, waiting to return? But each time, I reminded myself, I am stronger than the hurt. I am capable of forgiveness, of growth, and of moving forward. The betrayal shaped me, yes, but it did not define me. My heart, though scarred, could still trust, still love, and still hope. And that's why I want to leave you with this: if you've ever faced heartbreak, betrayal, or loss, know that your strength is greater than you imagine. You are not alone. Healing is possible. Life continues, and so must you. If you want to hear more stories like mine, uncover real-life experiences, and join a community of resilience and hope, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. Every story here is for people who've loved, lost, and are learning to rise again, and I promise, you don't want to miss the next one.